Let me read to you a passage from the 10th chapter of St. Luke's Gospel, verses 38 to 42. It's the Gospel for Tuesday of the 27th week in Ordinary Time, Year 2. St. Luke writes, "As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to Jesus and asked, 'Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do the work all by myself? Tell her to help me.' 'Martha, Martha,' the Lord answered, 'you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her.'" That's from Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42. And what does it suggest to us? Well, there is an old expression, reading between the lines. If we read between the lines, I think we can see the Martha of the Gospels occupying, in some sense, a place of some prominence in the early church. I say that because of the attention she seems to receive in a few passages of the Gospels. We remember the chapter in the Gospel of St. John that is given over to the raising of Lazarus from the dead. It is very clear that Martha, Mary and Lazarus were very close to our Lord, and on terms of special intimacy with him. In that chapter, we see the prominence of Martha. Her profession of faith in our Lord is magnificent, uttering in words before him what the entire Gospel of St. John intended to teach about Jesus, as we read at the end of that Gospel, that he is the Christ, the Son of God, the one who was to come into the world. In our Gospel passage today, which is from the Gospel of St. Luke, Martha again is prominent. It is interesting that Lazarus is not mentioned. Perhaps he was away. In any case, Martha and Mary are present, and it is Martha who welcomes our Lord to their home. While Mary is mentioned as sitting at our Lord's feet, listening to what he said, nevertheless, the attention is on Martha. She had welcomed our Lord, and she was busily preparing, perhaps not only for our Lord himself, but for his disciples, because we are told at the beginning of the passage that Jesus and his disciples were on their way when they arrived at the village of Martha. Her welcome of him presumably included his disciples, so she had a good bit of preparing to do. The focus remains on her as she complains to our Lord about her sister, who is perhaps characteristically leaving all the initiative to her sister while she herself sits before our Lord. So Martha complains, and our Lord, undoubtedly with a smile, tells her that not much is needed. Indeed, truth to tell, all that is needed is to hear his word and put it into practice. That is what Mary had chosen to do, to listen to his word, and he could not tell her to do otherwise. You know, every year the church celebrates the feast of St. Martha. There is no celebration of a feast of St. Lazarus, nor is there a celebration of the feast of Martha's sister Mary, though it was once thought that Mary was St. Mary Magdalene. This does not mean that Mary and Lazarus were not hidden saints, for their great intimacy with our Lord is clear from the Gospels. But the Church certainly holds up Martha for our veneration and imitation. Our Gospel passage today from Luke 10, verses 38 to 42, shows Martha as an active disciple of our Lord, welcoming him and serving him in very practical ways. In this, she is an example to us all. We are all called to welcome Christ into our life and to serve him daily in the fulfillment of our practical duties. Perhaps we could especially see this as applying to our attitude to the poor. In them we serve Christ, and so in welcoming the poor and in serving them in very practical ways, we are doing the same to Jesus. Our passage also points out our Lord's teaching in all the life of the Christian busily serving others in his name. The direct contemplation of him is to be first and foremost. What Mary was doing, seated before the Lord and listening with full attention to his word, must be regarded as the principal, but not the only, thing in the life of the Christian. Our Lord's correction of Martha in this matter was duly recorded by St. Luke for the benefit of all Christ's disciples. They must make time throughout life, and indeed every day, to be doing what Mary was doing in this scene. Their action must be combined with a life of contemplation of the Master. So let us ask ourselves if there is enough of this in our life. Every day we must be busy serving the Lord, but every day we must be found doing what Mary was doing too. So then, how much time are we spending at prayer, with the eyes of our soul gazing on Jesus in faith, and with our ears attuned to his word as it comes to us in the Scriptures and the Church's teaching? Let us develop the habit of a solid pattern of prayer in our daily life. As soon as we rise, our thoughts ought prayerfully go to Jesus, establishing ourselves yet again firmly in his friendship. We must not, in our daily work, forget the Lord of the work. Work out a plan of life then, a plan that will involve plenty of work for the Lord and times of prayer and reading of his word that will make it possible for us to sanctify the work that he wants us to do.